everyone, my name is Annie. Welcome to tonight's webinar. So you really want to be a CEO. At PDF, we believe that everyone should have access to the right tools, techniques, and networks to develop themselves. We do this by running open events that aim to inform, connect, and inspire, and share what we learnt with our community via social media and podcasts. Before we begin, some housekeeping. We encourage everyone to please turn on your cameras and engage in the conversation. If you have any questions at any time throughout the webinar or would like to make a comment, please type it in the chat box. During Q&A, you'll be invited to ask your questions. Note, this webinar is being recorded. I'm delighted to introduce our speaker, Dr. Duff Watkins. Duff is Managing Director at Exec International Australia with 30 years experience conducting executive searches around the globe. He has given over 1,000 presentations and has appeared on numerous radio and television programs. His written articles frequently appear in the press, both locally and abroad. Duff, thank you for joining us here tonight. I will now hand over to you.
My pleasure. Thanks, Annie. Everybody hear me okay? This presentation came about a few months ago. I was talking with Jeff and we were talking about young, ambitious people who aspired for promotion and wanted to be successes in their careers. But the joke is people aspire to things about which they know nothing. Hence my question. So you really want to be a CEO? Okay, well, we're going to talk about 10 things that you need to know as you plot your career. And when I say CEO, what I really mean is that's a metaphor, that's shorthand, that's a shortcut. That's for the next job, your next position, the job that you want, the job that you think you want, the job that you believe you want, but you're not quite sure. So that's what we're talking about tonight. First thing, a study published by Science Direct found that most senior executives, including most CEOs, were in the top 1% of analytical ability. I heard that and I thought, bullshit, that ain't true. And I know it's not true because for 30 years, I've been measuring verbal reasoning, analytical reasoning, numerical reasoning, critical ability, personality of a lot of senior executives. And they're not all in the top 1%. Most managing directors who had big companies, yeah, are pretty smart, maybe 10%, of course. And that's point number one. It isn't brains alone that matter. It's not one thing that matters. It's a constellation of things. It's your intellect, it's skills, it's abilities, it's emotional competency, it's your interpersonal style, all those. It's not one thing, it's a constellation of things. They did a 10-year study of 17,000 successful CEOs, and what they found was most of them were not charismatic. Most of them were not outgoing. Most of them did not graduate from elite universities. Over half of these above average CEOs were introverted. Here's some more stats for you. Of the 6 million CEOs in the US, only 8% have graduated from elite universities. 7% did not graduate from any college at all. Many of the CEOs are immigrants, guys like me, perhaps like you. Many of them started at entry-level positions and rose their way to the top. Lesson number 2, in business, everybody is eligible, no exceptions. By the way, if you do want to be CEO, it takes on average 24 years from your first job to the top job. Now, if you want to cut that, if you're really ambitious or you want to cut that to 14 years, here's what you do. You take on risk. You have to turn a company around that's failing or manage a company out of bankruptcy. You have to do something like that. And that takes us to point number 3. You must demonstrate your ability to solve difficult problems. Speaking of bullshit, that's another piece of management thing. You read about how successful executives take on risk. Well, let me tell you, bankruptcy courts, receiverships, failed businesses, jails are filled with people who took on risk. So it isn't taking on risk alone that is the key to success. It is the fact that you're able to demonstrate that you solve difficult problems. Now, that takes us to the audience participation part of the evening. So I want to ask you a question. I want you to give me a number. I want you to give me a percentage. What percentage of people who go into new roles fail within 18 months? For example, somebody is transferred to a new role, somebody heads a new position, somebody comes in from another country from another company into a new position, and it happens all the time, happens every day in business. And what percentage of them fail within 18 months? And when I say fail, I mean out, exited, cut, retrenched, fired, gone, sacked. I see one number, 50%. Any other nominations? 100, 10%? No, 10%. Okay.
30.
Thanks, Rob. 90%? 30. Okay. Let me tell you what the research says. The number that I use most frequently is 40%. Actually, it's a range. It's 40 to 68%. The 68% is a Harvard-based study. 40 to 68% of people, new executives in new roles, fail within 18 months. Why is that? Because they fail to assimilate rapidly enough. And that takes us to lesson number 4. In business, you have limited time to deliver, and the clock is ticking. I run these accelerated performance programs with executives right now, guys in the Philippines, in London, in Australia. Guys, males, females, doesn't matter. Every one of them are competent, smart, intelligent, accomplished, have runs on the board, have a successful track record. That's how they got to where they are now. The problem is, for whatever reason, they're not succeeding fast enough. They're not getting the returns that the companies that their bosses want. So therefore, they bring me in to accelerate their performance. Which takes us to point number 4. In business, you have limited time to deliver because the clock is ticking. Said that before. Did you know on average that the work week has shrunk by over 200 hours? Over 200 hours. Sounds good. Well, don't be so sure. What it means is that senior executives have less time to produce more than ever, and the clock is ticking. So my message to you really is, when you start thinking about your aspirations into career, into senior management, just be careful what you wish for. Because new roles make new demands and impose new taxes on you, and the clock is ticking. Oh, still, if you're a member of PDF, you're ambitious, you want to be successful, of course. My question to you is, what does success mean to you? Success is very, very personal. So if I ask you, what does success mean to you? Can you tell me in 50 words or fewer? Can you tell me in 20 or fewer seconds what success means to you? And if you can't, that means you haven't thought deeply enough about it. And that's lesson number 5, point number 5. You need to be able to say what it is you want, what success is to you in 50 or fewer words in 20 or fewer seconds. Now, here's the good news. You probably already know. It's just that it's right here in your heart, and it hasn't yet percolated up to your consciousness, which is why you may have difficulty articulating. So before you go to bed tonight, I want you to write it down. I want you to write it down. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's a rough draft, because when you write it down, when you connect it to paper, you're connecting it to reality. So 50 or fewer words. They don't have to be the right words. You can use any language you want. Words are too hard? Okay. Do a picture, a childlike diagram. That's fine. Do it tonight before you go to bed. And the point is, you have to, one of the difficulties that some people have is they simply haven't sampled enough of work. They haven't sampled enough jobs. They haven't sampled enough employment. So they don't have the raw data to transform it into useful information. And in your younger period of life, that's the sampling period. That's what you're supposed to do. You need that to experience what you like, what you don't like, what you want, what you don't want. You need that to experience yourself, to discover yourself. So if somebody at work, and bosses will do this, if they offer you money or experience, take the experience, because it's the experience that pays off, and that's an investment in yourself. Have you noticed, by the way, over the years that the nature of work has been transformed, is redefined? It's changed from being a job. Now it has to be a career. No, now it has to be a calling. And you're supposed to show up, and work is supposed to be your passion, your obsession, your bliss. And it's not going to happen, friends. You're not going to succeed at that. There's no chance of that, because at the end, it's just a job. You see, most jobs are not vehicles for meaning. Most jobs are not vehicles for fulfillment. And it's foolish to expect work to do that, to be that for you. You have to have realistic expectations about work. I asked a friend of mine who is a senior executive, company secretary for a large public company. I said, where do you find your meaning at work? Where do you find your fulfillment? He said, I find my fulfillment on the 15th of each month when that check enters my bank account. That's okay, fair enough. That's good enough. That's good meaning, because it's just a job. You have to have realistic expectations about work. You have to have realistic expectations about people. Do you know what a bell-shaped curve is? Of course you do. You're in the top 1%. You're a member of PDF. But just in case you forgot, I want to show you. A bell-shaped curve looks like this. I hope you can see this. It's shaped like a bell. And the point of this is, forgive the rough diagram here. This is an average distribution. You can use this for height. You can use this for weight. You can use it for intelligence. For example, we'll use height. Most people are average height here. And some very tall people that I play basketball with, former professionals, they're very tall. They're over here, this end. And some people, there's actually a dwarf who works at my gym. And he's a very short guy, so he's over here. And then just take intelligence. There's most people are average here. Forrest Gump is a little on this side. And if you remember PDF, obviously you're over here on the very high side. And the point about this is that most employees are not good enough to promote, and they're not bad enough to fire. Most employees are just average, and that's okay, because not every person in the Army gets to be a general. A company only needs one managing director. A corporation only needs one CEO. So that's why it's important to know what success is for you. Still, people want to be promoted. When they tell me that, I ask them, promoted where? You see, promotion is not up. It's not straight up. Which takes us to point number 6. Careers aren't ladders. Careers are mosaics. They're composed of individual, discrete tiles of experience that you place into this work to make it a work of art. And it's the composition is the art, not the material. Any material, any work experience is fine. You can use that in your career. So career paths aren't straight. They're sinuous and winding. A career isn't one big long-term plan. It's a series of pivots, short-term pivots. And the planning is best done after you had that sampling period where you have some experiences and you know what you want and what you don't. You've had some self-discovery. So you probably will, if you haven't already, you probably will change jobs, change industry, change careers. I hope so. I predict you will, because nowadays breadth of experience is more valuable than depth of experience. The point is career is not just up, and it's not just one direction. Choose the metaphor that you like. I said mosaic, career path, career ladder. Concentric circles is another one that makes a lot of sense. Okay, what about, do you want to be recognized? Do you want to be valued? Do you want to be appreciated? Of course you do. All humans want to be valued and appreciated and recognized. And hopefully you are, but are you valued and appreciated at work? Well, Let me tell you this. In my 30 years of recruitment and executive search, I've had a whopping one person, a young guy, a property manager down in Melbourne. One guy sent me a gift for helping him in his career. He must have, I think he ordered it off an online gift, and it was, I remember it was a small bottle of champagne. I don't even drink champagne, but 30 years, one guy. And that's okay. I'm not complaining. I mean, I was paid. I got financial validation for the project, so that was fine. But dig this. I went to see my GP the other day, earlier this year. My GP, he's the best GP in the world. He's an 83-year-old Indian guy. So I go there and I talked to the receptionist. I said, Dr. Gupta's not in. He's been away for a while. He's been away for a while and we don't know when he's coming back. I said, is he okay? Is he sick? Is he ill? Because he's 83 years old. She said, yeah, I think so. He's just away. I mean, he's coming back, but we don't know when. So he shows up. So I go to see him. And, I went back home and I was talking with the wife. I called up Dr. Gupta and left a voicemail. He doesn't do texting, right? He's 83. So I leave him a voicemail. I said, Dr. Gupta, I went to see you today. You're not there. Hope everything's okay. Hope you're not ill. Hope everything is fine. Just calling to see how you are. If there's anything we can do, you let us know. Now, fast forward to go back to the clinic weeks later, and he's there. And so make an appointment to see him. So we go in to see him. And before we even sat down, he says to me, thank you for your voicemail. Yeah, that's the first time any patient has ever inquired about my welfare. Now, this is a guy that's been practicing medicine since the late 1960s. And my point is, and this is a psychological point, observation number 7. Most people cannot support themselves emotionally, let alone you. So don't expect them to. Don't demand that they do, because it's more than likely that they won't, especially at the office. Because you see, the workplace, it isn't uni. It isn't a social club. It's not therapy. It's a commercial environment. A place of business is a commercial environment. And that means livelihoods are at stake. And that's why it's so bloody serious. Livelihoods are at stake. Now, you can ask people for support. Better still, you can coach them on how to support you. You can instruct them on how to support you. You can ask for feedback. You can ask for positive feedback. And I hope you do, because then you're more likely to get it. Okay, so you've been promoted. You got that job. Congratulations. Point number 8, new roles require new skills. Remember those 40 to 68% of executives we talked about in new roles who were tossed out after 18 months? You know what the problem is? It's always the same problem. I see it every time. It's always the same thing. They are over-relying on current, existing, old skills instead of learning, developing, acquiring the new skills required in the new role. I'm going to say that again. They're over-relying on the old, existing, current skills instead of acquiring the new skills they need in the new role. This guy says to me, Duff, I don't get it. I'm doing the same thing I've been doing for 30 years, and now I'm getting hammered all over the place. And I said, Joe, listen, that's because you're no longer the CFO, you're the CEO, and you're getting taxed in a new way from a new direction. And it's stressful because you're being asked to do something you haven't done before. New roles require new skills, always have, always will. Oh, here's a new skill you can start developing because you need to practice at it. Learning how to interact with opposing forces and people. You can't get enough of that. And the higher you go in senior management, the more you'll be using that. Point number 9, don't let your job interfere with your career. Don't let your job impede your career. You see, a career is not a succession of jobs or tasks that you do and simply consume your time until they're completed. A career is a series of results that you accomplish for your employer, even if you're self-employed. A career is, you need to accomplish short-term, enjoy short-term accomplishments, string them together, and then you have long-term achievement. In other words, you string together a bunch of good jobs, then you have a career. Heap of good jobs equal good career. In conclusion, all right, let's talk about how to find the job that's right for you. It's simple. You ask 2 questions. Now, let's say you want to, it doesn't really matter. For example, if you want to be an accountant or an astronaut, you want to be a rock star, you want to be a marketer, doesn't matter. What, fill in the blank, whatever career profession you want to be. We'll go with marketing. You simply contact every marketing person you know, have access to, and then you meet with them in person, preferably, over the phone, Zoom, email, whatever the case may be. Write them a letter if need be. And you ask them 2 basic questions. First, you say, what do you like about your job? Then you ask, what do you dislike about your job? And then you wait and listen for what they have to say. And then after that, without effort, it's self-sorting. You simply see if it's a match for your interests, your skills, your abilities. Now, of course, those 2 questions will lead to other questions, and you will ask your question, that question in your way, in your language, in your style, in your own creative way. And that's fine, but that's what it comes down to. You ask that accountant, that marketer, that astronaut, that rock star, what do you like about your job? What do you dislike about your job? And listen, and that's all you need to know, and that's all you need to do. Okay, that finishes the formal portion of this presentation. Over to Annie. So let's hear from you folks.
Yep, thank you, Duff. So now we'll open to the audience to take on any questions. So if you have any questions for Duff, please submit your questions in the chat and you'll be invited to ask your questions. So the first question that came through is from Cyrus. Would you like to ask your question?
Hi, Doctor. Appreciate your talk. It was really insightful. I work in an organization where I just saw a change in CEO, and there was a drastic difference from our past CEO and our current CEO. So it was really insightful, your conversation. My first question that I had was along the lines of, what do you define as a successful CEO? There are different CEOs think of themselves differently. Personally, from my observation of my current organization, I see that he believes his definition of success is around the share price of the company. That's how, the organization that I work for, the CEO right now, believes success is defined on how the share price is working and how he portrays it to the market. So I'd like to know what's your thoughts around what your opinion is of a successful CEO.
Yeah, hi, Cyrus. Thank you for your question. And by the way, the name is Duff, everybody. We can drop the title, okay? That even I'm not impressed by that anymore, okay? It is unfortunate. This happened, I don't exactly know when, but the share price became the sole indication for success in companies. And it started, I don't know, maybe the 90s, and CEO compensation, senior management compensation and options and share price has been tied to that. And it's such a poor qualifier for a company's success. But I think it's too far gone now. I mean, I don't see it turning back. In the old days, in the 50s and the 60s, the board didn't give a damn about the share price, and they didn't give a damn about anybody because they were running a business and they were running a successful business. So now the CEO and you get marked on this, they have to be media celebrities. I mean, I've seen the CEO for Jamie Dimon. He spoke at Congress, and they treated him like he was a damn rock star, you know? And there are some people, maybe like me, who think maybe he should be in jail for his part of the global financial crisis. But I wasn't called to testify, so they didn't get to hear from me. So unfortunately, that's the world we're living in now, where share price is the be all end all for them. And I'm afraid I don't think that's going to change soon. But I'll tell you what Warren Buffett would say. He says when he buys companies, and he knows a bit about investing, he looks for the management team. He looks for, is the management team competent? He doesn't look for whether they're media darlings. He looks to see if they're competent. Can they do the job? Can they get the results? I hope that answered your question.
So, yeah. Well, I was looking at more specific qualities of what you define as a successful CEO.
Adaptable, in one word, adaptable. They're all smart, and they all have to be adaptable, and they all have to be, the word is chameleon. They monitor their, and I've seen a lot, I've interviewed a lot on podcasts and stuff, and they're very, they have to, they're diplomatic, they're politically astute, they don't say stupid things, they don't harm the share price because they realize if they say something stupid at a PDF meeting that it could harm the share price. And so they're astute, and they know how to work the audience, they know how to say what's expected, they allay the concerns. And so that's a real skill. That is a real skill. Now, as to whether they're chameleon-like, they have different personas, they monitor their behavior, and there's evidence to support this. It's not just me talking. They're called self-monitors. The people who are self-monitors, they gauge the room, they gauge the environment, and they see what's going to work best, and they have an ability to establish rapport. And it helps if they know what they're doing, but most of them do know what they're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Pleasure.
Next question is from Rob.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for your insights, Duff. My question is around your comment you made earlier around CEOs failing within the first 18 months is generally due to them not assimilating with people in the company. Could you provide some insight? Is that assimilating with people like who are on the board or with their peers? And, is there a balance between making yourself so accessible that you're spreading yourself too thin?
Yeah, the assimilating usually means when a CEO gets fired, it's usually by somebody who's more senior than them. So in this case, in my experience, it's the board or the senior management. Well, when we'll use Australian terms, the managing director, when he gets fired, it's by the board, and it's because he wasn't able to please them. He wasn't able to tell them what they wanted to hear, or he didn't say it in the way that they wanted to hear it. That goes back to the political skills that we're discussing with Cyrus. And it presumes that the board is really competent, that they know what they're doing, that they know what they want, but that isn't the case, really. I mean, sometimes they're just like anything else. Boards, there's some good boards, there's some bad boards, there's some experts on it, some really good people, and others are just slack-jawed dullers, and you wonder what the hell are they doing there? Just the same in any form of management. So it's usually displeasing people above who have the power, the authority to fire you. Now, of course, if you're not assimilating with the company and the team below you, then that's a problem too. But when I work with people, one of the first things you have to do is if you're a senior executive, let's say you're the boss, you have to assimilate a team rapidly, a good, efficient, effective team. And because your job basically is managing, coaching, supervising them. So you have to surround yourself with people who can do the job. And part of their job is to make you look good.
Yep. Thank you for that. Definitely agree. And yeah, definitely
Did I answer your question? Follow up again if I didn't.
Yeah, for sure. And it definitely, because in the past, I've seen some senior managers being exited from organizations where I've worked, and I've always kind of questioned what is really the case, but I agree, definitely displeasing people above them. But I think it's good that you point out that the people above them don't necessarily or aren't necessarily in tune with what's happening. And when you see good leaders walk or get walked out, it definitely questions your alliance and your loyalty to the company you're working for. So I think that's good insight.
Okay. True story. I'm sitting at home, sitting in this office. I got a call from Germany saying, "Could you be in Melbourne tomorrow morning?" Yeah, why? And he said, "We're going to fire so-and-so, and they mentioned his name. And I said, he runs your company? And because I knew him, and I knew the guy, and I knew him by reputation. And I was surprised because I hadn't heard it in the industry. And so I go down there, and what happens is the guy, an Australian guy, went to the board in Germany, made such a wonderful presentation. They hired him on the spot without consulting, asking anybody. So the guy comes back, takes over the managing director role, and the entire staff revolt as one, and almost all the senior management complained bitterly because the guy was inept to be the managing director. And so they send in the executioner, the HR director, and he ropes me in there to go down there. And they oust this guy. And all the time I'm thinking, all they had to do, and one phone call to me, I could have told him, don't do that. He's not up to it. Now, here's where it gets interesting, Rob, because bit by bit, one by one, those other senior managers who foisted the exit, they got axed by the company bit by bit, and they were long-serving senior people. So one of the things you have to do in your career is learn to think like a company, and it's not entirely rational, but then neither are you or I, so that's okay, right? So, and companies think, you have to think like a company, think like an organization, and it's different. And the world looks very different when you're sitting on the board, when you're the managing director. It is unfortunate, and as you say, it doesn't engender confidence in you as a worker. As one of the, you're one of the worker bees on the hive, I guess, and you're trying to make it happen for them. And you think, geez, man, is there chaos up there? Well, it may be, but the good news is these things have a way of working out. And so I keep repeating that to myself a lot. These things have a way of working out. So feel free to chant that to yourself next time it happens.
For sure. Thank you.
Pleasure.
So next question we have is from AV.
Oh yeah. Hi, Duff. This
Hi.
is following up from your question or your statement earlier that back then we rely on the depth of your experience, and now it's the breadth of your experience, right? So in like building your A team, how different is it when picking the top three skill sets back then and now? Do you think there's a difference?
I'm not sure I understand your questions. Give it to me again, please.
So what are the top three strengths or skill that you look for when you want to build your A team, and how is it different back then and now? For example, now there's a lot of talk about having EQ or creativity, and back then it wasn't so much of an emphasis. So do you think there's any change in the type of skill sets that you look for in the talent in building your team?
No. I mean, EQ is what we basically used to call just personality, your ability to interact with a variety of people. It's a fancy name, emotional intelligence, EQ, emotional competency. My mother had it in spades. My mother she didn't go to college. I think she barely made it out of high school, but she was American Businesswoman of the Year. And she started a group like PDF, but it was for women bankers. So she did okay, but because she had a certain sort of interpersonal style. Now, and adaptability and flexibility, that's what senior executives, that's what's required in the most senior executive roles. Everyone's smart, everyone's capable, everyone's competent at the senior level. Everybody has skills, but can you get along with other people? Can you assemble a team? Can you motivate a bunch of not just your team, but your peers? Can you state your case in a way that will convince and persuade people, people who maybe oppose you? So that, let me state it in the opposite. I used to work in psychiatry, and I learned this the hard way. Rigidity is the kiss of death. If you have fixed ideas, rigid personality, just unyielding, unbending, you're not going to last long. Because for one thing, the world changes too fast and business changes too fast. Remember before the virus, when life was normal, and how quickly Australia changed in just a matter of days and weeks. Well, that's what business is like. And so flexibility and adaptability are absolutely essential nowadays. Does that answer your question? I'm always afraid that I'm missing a point.
Yep, it does. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you. So next question we have is from Cyrus again.
Duff, you mentioned about as you're progressing, one should be coached and supported. In your opinion, what would be the best way that someone could seek coaching? Would it be like a professional coach, or what sort of a coaching would you recommend as someone grows and develops in their career?
I've always found it to be sort of self-sorting. I mean, people take an interest in you. People have taken an interest in me. People have been helpful. In big companies, they will often assign you a mentor. And it could be in this country, it could be elsewhere. And big companies should take it seriously, will do that. My reservation is I see so many people online on LinkedIn and business claiming to be business coaches, life coaches, franchise coaches. And I think, who the hell are you? What have you done? What credentials do you have? What sort of experiences do you have that you, so I'm always a bit skeptical. I'm healthily skeptical about a lot of that. But one of the advantage of a coach is that they tell you things that you don't know or that you need to know. And one of the advantages is that you can, I often say this to companies that hire me. I said, the person that you assign me to work with, they're going to say things to me that they won't say to you because they're the boss. They're going to tell me that you're a dickhead if they think you're a dickhead, but they're not going to tell you that because, they're not stupid, because they like the 15th of the month for that money to hit that account. So, and that's, but turning that around though, Cyrus, so having somebody to talk to, you don't need to hire them necessarily. You can just find them. And in my experience, most people are quite desirous about helping you and will freely share their time and their insights. Not that they know everything, but the trouble is, again, in my opinion, they tend to give advice. And I got out of the advice giving business years ago because I realized, one, I don't know so much. And two, it sort of is an unequal position, as if I know more than the person. And even if the person's younger, I know a lot, but I don't know what they know. And what I know might be past its use by date anyway. So now I only make suggestions, so, and if it fits, if it sounds good, feel free. But so yeah, I'm sort of wary about the coaching, but about paying for it. But I think they're everywhere, people that you can learn from and who will gladly share. I mean, most people will gladly share with you if you have a question. I mean, I get calls, my colleagues in the US, we talked about this the other day, we get calls, we get emails from people, and sometimes here's what we were talking about. We were wondering, why do we respond positively to some and negatively to others? Well, the answer is obvious in the tone of it and in the, I don't like obsequious, ass licking kind of approaches, I mean, I can see that a mile off. Or a guy send me a resume saying, I'd like some help. How do we proceed? What's the next step? Like, what? I don't work for you, pal, but somebody who's genuine and authentic and wants some help. I think everybody responds to that. And if they don't, well, to hell with them. You don't need them anyway. You need to get on to the next person that will help you. There's more than enough, Cyrus, more than enough.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Next question we have is from AV.
Hi, Duff. This is following up from your question earlier. You mentioned you asking someone in the industry that what do you like about your job and what do you dislike about your job. So question to you, what do you like and what do you dislike about your job?
How I got my job is a mentor guy. He sat behind me in the office, and this is back in the 80s. And he turned out to be a mentor, but he was just a guy behind me. He just took an interest in me. And he said, and I really liked him. I mean, he's just a really smart guy. And he said, I think you ought to consider executive search. I was a consulting psychologist at the time. And I said, yeah, David, but aren't they all wankers? come to think of it, maybe that's why he suggested. Anyway, so what I did, I practiced what I preached. I just contacted I didn't know any executive search consultants, but I made a point. Melbourne, Sydney, I phoned up, I got introductions, I met them, I interviewed them, and what do you like about your job? What do you dislike about your job? And it turns out I heard a lot of pluses and not so many minuses. And that was about 30 years ago. So it's been okay. So you're asking me, what do I like about my job? That's easy. The people you meet and you find out how business really works. It's not what people think it is on the outside. You find out how stuff really works, how stuff really gets done. And sometimes you walk away awfully unimpressed with that, with people, boards. You're overcome by their awesomeness. And then with a bit more time, you realize, no. The problem was me. I didn't see what they offer. I didn't see how they succeed. I didn't see what they're doing right and how they got their job and how they keep their job. It's like Joe Hockey told a group. Joe Hockey spoke here, he's former ambassador to the US from Australia. He said his first day in Parliament, his friend took him in there and he looked around and he saw some of those people. And his friend said, "Don't be fooled, Joe. Every one of them were smart because they got elected." And it's true. It's true. You know, you may not understand how they got there, but they did something right. And you may not be able to have the ability to comprehend what they did right, but they did something right. So I like meeting people, hearing how stuff really gets done. The dislike that I have is executive search, like many jobs, is basically sales. So you have to get out there and sell. And I made a decision. I don't mind sharing this. I made a decision last year. Never again will I talk to a silly young HR girl. Sorry, lady, that's not meant to be. It's just that I deal with a lot of HR. I've had to deal with a lot of silly young HR girls, and I said never again. It's just painful. So, and life got better after that. I'm not blaming them. It's just that, you see, you know, one of the difficulties with HR is that they're playing a different game. They're always trying to justify their existence in an organization, whereas I and the people I deal with, we're playing a different game. So there was a frank and raw and unedited answer, Avi. How?
All right, thank you.
Next question we have is from Mary.
Hi, Mary.
Hi, Duff. Thanks for the presentation. It was
Pleasure.
great. Yeah. So you were saying that new roles require new skills, and that's a big factor in why new executives don't last, because they don't learn those skills. And one area, especially, is skills for handling difficult people or oppositional people. And so I was just interested to ask you, where's a good, how do you learn those skills? It's something I've found challenging. So I'd be interested to know.
Well, the Dalai Lama says we need dickheads, you know, in our life. And I said, you know, what the hell? I got plenty, you know, why do I need to? He would say, because you need to practice. You need to learn compassion, because you're not very good at it. So you need all the practice you can get. And so the way he looks at it, all those dickheads, all those difficult people, they're giving you opportunities to practice your compassion. And in the business world, he's right. All those people who disagree with you, they're giving you the opportunity to hone your skills. And of course, they have something to say, they have something to offer, and it's up to you to figure out how to work with it. True story, you got me thinking about it. I was talking to the boss of I won't say the brand, because everybody, you have one in your wallet. It's a major credit card, major financial institution. And he said to me, and the guy's quite competent, and he said he had a new boss. And the new boss, it was awful. It was awful. He said his new boss was from India. And that, I think, was part of it. And he said they just were not getting along. And he had gone from being very, very successful running the company's operation for Australasia or something like that. And his new boss from Southeast Asia was just making it difficult. And so he said, I've got to figure this out. I have to figure out how to work with this guy. I have to figure out how to make it work. I do, not him. And he said he did. And he said, I followed up with him about a year later. We had sort of a routine. We met once a year. And he said, I would say now, Duff, that if I were to leave this company, he would be my #1 referee. Now, my point in saying that, and it was a real eye-opening lesson for me, that's how hard you have to work. That's how much exertion it takes. And you have to figure out how to make it work. And now, I'm sure, the other guy was probably doing the same thing too. And the guy that I was speaking to, he's now promoted. He now runs Europe instead of Australia. Okay, but that's what it takes. And in order to do it, you have to have the motivation to do it. You have to have the desire to do it. Now, getting along with difficult people isn't the single most deficient skill that I have found in people. It can be anything, really. It could just not understanding the urgency. It could be just politics, really, is what I want to say. They don't read the politics. They don't play the politics very well, and they don't understand it. They're swamped by it. And that is difficult. But even so, the first question you have to ask yourself, do I want to play the politics? Do I want to spend time doing that? And if the answer is no, well, then that says something. Again, another example, I'm sitting in the US ambassador's house in Canberra. God knows why I got there, but there I was. It was an AmCham meeting. And I'm looking around at the head of Procter & Gamble and the head of Boeing and the head of these big US companies, Coca-Cola and Pepsi and others. And I'm looking at them, and I knew them. I knew them because I'd interacted with them. And I'm thinking, they're really good at playing the corporate game at that level. But the guy from Procter & Gamble said to me, he said, yeah, I was based in Cincinnati, that's their headquarters, and I had a choice. They either sent me to Sydney or they sent me to Bulgaria. And I got Sydney, and I said, yes. And I'm thinking to myself, they sent you? You didn't have a choice? Well, you do have a choice, but if you opt out, then you opt out completely. Somebody else gets the next call. And say, I still reflect upon that, allowing a corporate head office to choose where you and your family go, Bulgaria or Sydney. Now, that's what you sign on for, right, in the corporate life. And they pay you. I mean, you don't do it for free, and there are a lot of benefits to it as well. But so in the corporate life, it takes a certain kind of person to succeed at that level and to play that game. Think of the analogy often used as professional musicians, professional athletes, the really, really good actors. They take on roles and master them. They do it authentically. And sometimes they win awards like Oscars and Grammys. But you have to have the skill, the desire, the motivation, and it helps if you have some ability as well. Geez, that was a long answer. Did I answer your question? Okay.
Thanks, Duff. The next question is from Sean.
Yep. Hi, Duff. Thanks for the
Sean.
talk today. Really appreciate it. Really good talk. I just had a question around company culture. So a lot of organizations like to talk about their unique culture. So does that mean people with certain personality types are excluded from certain organizations if they don't fit a certain mold?
Sorry, Sean, you're breaking up on me. I heard you, you're talking about company culture and excluding certain kinds of people.
Yeah.
Better say again.
Yeah. So sort of, I think companies like to talk about their unique culture. So does that mean people of certain personality types are excluded from certain organizations if they don't fit a certain mold, I guess?
Yeah, well, companies always talk about their unique culture, and that's bullshit. I mean, of course, every culture is unique because every company is slightly different. I mean, when Apple and IBM and Google, when Apple and IBM were making computers, they both did the same kind of job. They had different products, but they had very different cultures. A lot of that is hype and nonsense. The culture is determined by the people in the company. They're the ones that bring the culture and develop it and transform it. So do companies actively discriminate against certain kinds of people? Yes, they do. They discriminate all the time against introverted people. They wouldn't admit it. They probably don't even know it. They discriminate against people who look a certain way, act a certain way, because there are an infinite combination of human interactions. So if you find a hiring manager who, for whatever reason, likes you or reacts to you in a positive way, well, that's good for you. And some people, maybe they just don't like the way you look. Maybe they don't like your accent. Maybe they don't like, who knows? But don't get too hung up on that though, Sean, because you have no control over that. And those are the 20% of people whom you don't want to talk. You don't waste time with those companies because you wouldn't fit. You want to be in an environment where they do appreciate you, where they do value, or they at least give you an opportunity. It kind of reminds me of that Australian comedian, God, what's his name? He's got a show. He's only got one leg, and he's got a show on TV. And I heard him one time, and he said he was playing in Scotland one time, and he was about to take the stage, and there was a Scottish guy on the front of the stage with a beer, and he's looking up at him as the Adam taking the stage, and the Scottish guy is saying, "You're shite. That's what you are. You're shite." And Adam looks down at him and says, "Give me a chance to prove it. Geez, I haven't even started yet." So that's the kind of same at work, all you want is a chance to prove how good you are or how good you're not or whatever. And if you have to blaze a trail, I'm not sure that's, that sounds like too much work for me. So bottom line, find the 80%, Sean, the companies that will appreciate you as you are, and you won't have to fight those unnecessary battles.
Cool. Thanks, Duff.
Thank you. Next question we have, just conscious of time, we've got 2 more questions, is from Jeff.
Oh, look. So I just thought I'd let's throw this out there. Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk? Who do you like more?
I think Musk is a fraud. I think Bezos is something else entirely. And I'm quite prepared to be disproven about either of that. So,
does that mean you don't like either, or do you think he's do you think he's not a fraud? I mean, bear in mind that Bezos' ex-wife is worth more than Elon Musk. So there you go.
Yeah, well, Bezos is transforming capitalism. So and I'm certainly a customer of Amazon. So it's really interesting to see. I mean, you don't get to be a guy like Bezos, the wealthiest man in the history of the planets, the galaxy. You don't get to be that wealthy by being a swell guy. He's a pretty rough and tough business guy. But so what? So yeah, I don't know. I watch both of those guys with interest.
Thank you, Duff. And one last question we have from Letitia.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, hey, I'm sorry, my camera broke yesterday, so that explains why it's a blank screen. However, I wanted to ask you, so I'm a recent graduate and now I'm onto finding a job in marketing to gain some kind of expertise. And I wanted to ask you how I should approach the job search, knowing that I have really high expectations and ideas of how I would like things to be, and whether it's bad or not that I have high expectations as I'm just starting out.
Yeah, Letitia, I heard most of that question. You're a young grad, recent grad, job search, marketing, and that's all I heard. So can somebody
Okay.
reiterate the question for me?
I can probably
Yeah.
take over if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
So Letitia's question is, I'm a recent graduate and now on to finding a job in marketing to gain expertise. How do I approach the job search knowing that I have these high expectations and ideas of how I would like things to be? Is it bad to have high expectations when you're starting out?
No, you have the expectations that you have, but they need to be realistic, whether they're high or low. And the way to the way to modify your expectations is to talk to marketing people. Have you talked to marketing people and said and asked them two questions? What do you like about your job? What do you don't like? What do you not like about your job? Talking with people who are actually doing the job is the best way to gain realistic expectations, because they will tell you what it's like. And remember, it isn't up to you. It's what does the company want? What does the company require from you? Employment's basically agreement. You take their money and then you complete certain work for them. And if you don't want to complete that work for them, then give back the money. But they will have their own expectations. And an entry-level role, it doesn't mean you have no choice, but you're trying to get the best fit of all, of course. But I think the primary need is you need some experience in marketing, because the study is fine, but there's just nothing like real life, real world experience when clients are paying you to do something, and there's a certain kind of time pressure, and it's fun, it's stimulating, and it's not all bad, don't get me wrong, but it's like playing a sport. It's fun. But I would think getting raw experience, just some experience, would be a priority. But yeah, if it was me, I would just talk to as many marketing people as I know and as I could find, and I would say, knowing what you know now, what would you look for in your first job? That's what I would ask them.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome.
And that brings us to the end of this session. Thank you, Duff, for being generous with your time and sharing your expertise and stories with us. And to the PDF team for making this webinar possible. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. Hope you enjoyed this session. Our next event will be on the 16th of July at 6:30 p.m. The topic will be how your diverse heritage makes you a better leader with Ranil Sharma. Please keep an eye out on our website or Facebook page for the details coming out soon. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.